Well, hello, Facebook Live. We're back again. Today is Monday, August 19th, and I'm here with my partners once again, Richard Smokey Garrett and Law L.J. Johnson. We got two good topics for tonight. One is we want to talk about Ice Cube's proposal and relationship that he is trying to build with some of our political leaders, namely Trump, who gave him an audience or partial audience. He wasn't personally involved. He sent some of his people. And we also want to talk about the law enforcement unions endorsing candidates without the input of its minority or African-American officers. So those are going to be two hot topics for tonight. So let's get it cracking. Let's get it. So Richard, what do you got from a historical standpoint?
Oh, well, you guys know that being with the JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, that we had a black police officers union, and it wasn't just exclusively for just black officers, but it came together because of the officers are saying nowadays, because they was being underrepresented. I know personally, having used the union, the FOP, which is the sanctioned unit of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, it kind of seemed like it felt like you was going through a divorce, and your divorce attorney was friends with your ex's attorney. So it kind of left you feeling like you was gonna get the short end of the stick. So that's kind of how we felt with the being a black police officer there. I remember we tried to get the PBA, Police Benevolent Association, as our union, which was quickly outvoted because it's kind of it's strength in numbers, like they say, and the numbers are overwhelmingly against the minority officers there, which I'm sure is in most departments across the country.
Yeah, I wish we could have gotten someone who was a part of the Brotherhood's leadership team at some point. I was never heavily vested into it. I was a member at one time, but I was never active, so I can't say a whole lot about the inner workings of it. I do know that, in my opinion, they were not strong here in Duval, that they didn't make much of an impact. Their voice wasn't really heard. They wasn't really visible. I didn't personally see that they did a lot that made much of an impact, but that's just me. And I often like to say, if the common man can't feel it, then it ain't getting done. But so we do have a black law enforcement union here in Jacksonville, but again, I can't say what they have done and what they are doing as of now, but I haven't felt the impact.
I know one of the presidents, who will remain nameless, a while back, and I assume all of them did this, but I don't know, but they used to meet with the sheriff pretty regularly, because I had a conversation with one of them, and it was simply, how come there are no black officers on the motor unit? And so my theory, my thought process was, at the time, was, if you're going to represent the interest of those who are underrepresented, then you don't, that's not a passive thing. That's, you ask questions, and that was my whole thing with all of this, is how come the specialized units in our agency don't look like the agency? And that's not, I don't think that was too much of an ask. And I explained it to him, they won't have a good answer, but they'll start, handpicking certain people to be in certain specialized units, and that's what happened.
So when you said that you knew that they were having regular meetings with the sheriff, are you talking about the sheriffs over a long period of time, meaning the various sheriff that we worked up under? Because I worked up under 4. Or are you talking about one in particular?
I don't know if they met with all of them. I don't. When I came on under McMillan, I didn't even know nothing about the Brotherhood, to be honest with you. So I don't know if that was happening then, but it happened under Glover, obviously, and it happened under Rutherford.
Okay.
So, and I don't know, if Mike Williams carried that same banner, but I know that during this particular time, there were no bros in any specialized units, except maybe like Vice and stuff like that, but in narcotics. But I'm talking about like traffic, and motor unit, air unit. Take that back. There were some in traffic, not on the motor unit.
Well, now there was some over the period of our tenure, because Tommy Tyson was a dog handler. He was in the K9 unit, and McLean was in the air unit,
Mm-hmm.
and they had I don't know if Wilbur Wiggins was on the motor. I doubt if he was on the motor at one time.
He was when it was 3-wheel.
Okay, so there has been
over time.
one.
Yeah, over time they've had them, because I can tell you shortly after, I was maybe a year or 2 after that conversation that I had with this person, I was on the motor. You had one brother in K9, and you had one brother in air unit, because we all took a picture together.
Mm-hmm.
Because during our time, that was the only time that had happened.
Right.
So I don't know, like you said, I don't know what impact the Brotherhood has or had on policy making, or how things go, how they operate in the sheriff's office. But I know when you start, if the person that's over the Brotherhood starts asking those probing questions, you may not get a good answer, you may not get an answer at all. But things start happening because they can't answer that question. Now, if nobody ever asks, they're gonna keep rolling business as usual.
Yeah. Well, either way, we're underrepresented. So, however the numbers fall out, we're still underrepresented. And again, we're not in decision-making positions. You can put 1 or 2 minorities in a specialized unit as a line worker, and that might be just for the optics of it. But are you putting them in to make a difference? And difference comes in those who can affect change. And I understand you got to start someplace. So, I'm all about changes is a slow process, but it's been 30 plus years now, and it doesn't look like the needle has moved much.
True, very true. And I would even throw out too that back during those times, at least I can remember, they would have votes for the FOP is what I'm speaking of. They would have votes for which candidate the FOP was supporting. Do y'all remember those?
Right. Yep.
So I don't know if that happened this time around. Don't sound like it did, but
now if it did, and again, we normally will all generally the minority officers as well as the majority officers, we were all generally on the same page. It didn't come where we had these wide divides until President Obama came into the fold, and now with all this controversy with Donald Trump, now you're seeing a wide divide. So there's two different opinions on who to endorse, but we're coming back to the numbers. And if white America is primarily consists of the white male, middle age, older white male, then that goes into our business arena and it goes into our law enforcement. So when that vote is conducted, you're still saying the majority is the white, middle age, older male. So his vote is probably gonna be larger in the big picture. So if the white middle age male is voting or supporting Donald Trump, then even with the vote of the body of officers, it probably still could tilt in that favor because they are the majority.
Yeah, well, that's clearly what happened because that's I guess on the national level, state level, and local levels, they all fell in line with that. So,
and under normal circumstances, go ahead, Smoke.
The big controversy right now is because I think it was in Philadelphia. Their police, their officers there, I think they had maybe about 5,000 officers that didn't go along with the endorsement of Donald Trump with the National FOP. And at the National Republican Convention is when the FOP president, national president, he came out and said that there was going to be an endorsement, total of the FOP for Donald Trump, which rubbed a lot of the members wrong that didn't support Donald Trump because it wasn't disseminated that was going to happen. I mean, it kind of blindsided a lot of people. It's like, what's going on? When did this happen? Who made that happen? You know what I mean? So it's not, they wasn't giving any warning. So I think the Philadelphia, the 5,000 Philadelphia officers, they went away from their FOP. And I know the Dallas has a pretty big a brotherhood union, and they said that they have people they had officers from, now this is Dallas, Texas. They have officers that's in Kansas City, Kansas, that's trying to join up with them because they're disgruntled with their leadership up there, but not having a voice.
Is that because they're trying to join the brotherhood because they're leaving the FOP?
Yeah, it's because of their voices are not being heard. Their concerns. I mean, I guess they brought it up, and it's like, hey, we really, against all the type of rhetoric against us, and the things that we take is offensive, and you guys are like saying, so what? Get over it. This is what we're going to do, and it's kind of, 2020 has brought a lot of people, made a lot of people wake up and say, hey, look, we ain't got to take what we've been taking. And I think that's one of these things they said, hey, you're not going to force this down our throat. We're going to go elsewhere. So
here's what I like about the whole thing, because I think this is beautiful. For years, Black police officers have been dealing with these kinds of things and haven't had anybody in position to speak out. The officers couldn't speak out for fear of retribution. We've covered that on numerous occasions on this platform. But now here's the thing where it's out in the open and they're not hiding it, and they're not hiding the why either. So right. I like transparency. So it's out in the open. You might as well, drop the N-word while you're doing it, because that's essentially what's happening.
And I guess that's what's making it that now, like you said, they are out in the open, that even when I see the union reps or the union leaders, they are making it plain and clear they are not about unity because they're following the Trump ideology. They have picked a side. They don't care who agrees with them and who don't agree with them, and they are making it. And they just making it known that we are a Trump supporter. We don't care what you feel about it. You know.
Personally, I mean, I know, Sam, you was military also. You know, with active duty military, they can't, like the leaders, the generals, and admirals, people in positions of power, they can't endorse political candidates on behalf of the military. And with the law enforcement being a paramilitary organization, they shouldn't be allowed to do that also either. You know, it kind of, what's going on now, it kind of adds fuel to the us against them
You're right.
battle, you know, and that mentality.
Mm-hmm. But you know, when you get law enforcement endorsement, that is a lot of weight, because you know how many people came to me, and I'm sure you guys, in the course of a day while we were on duty, and would ask questions about the political process or the candidates. So our voice and our opinion carried a lot of weight, and people would pretty much make their determination on how they were going to vote on a lot of issues or candidates based on what law enforcement, whether it be an individual law enforcement officer or where it may have been the endorsement of you know, that particular jurisdiction's agency. It carried a lot of weight. And you know, like I say, the power is in your stakeholders and your lawmakers. And so police union ain't nothing but a big lobbyist, just like the rest of them. They're trying to gain some political persuasion, you know, and in Washington, D.C. or the Capitol, wherever you may stay. But they're trying to gain some political influence as well. So the union ain't nothing but a big old lobbyist, because there's power.
Well, the biggest issue for me out of all of it is if a law enforcement entity like the FOP, who represents law enforcement officers, are saying that we align ourselves with this person, then I hear and see what this person does and how they respond to people that look like me, then that tells me that's how you're going to respond to me. So because y'all co-sign that, that's who you align yourself with. So now when you know you're dealing with John Q. Citizen as a law enforcement officer, you're carrying the Trump banner now with your badge on. So no, I don't believe as a black man I'm gonna get treated fairly by you, just simply because of who you align yourself with. And that's my biggest issue with it, because you, as a police officer, you serve the public. It doesn't matter party affiliation, you serve the public. Well, how can you really truly do that without any bias, especially after you co-sign with something or someone like that? Because in addition to that, you co-signed with the Ku Klux Klan, the Proud Boys, and all these other white supremacy groups that the FBI said are a danger to America. You co-signed with them too, because they on the same team you on. Like, when does that happen?
Well, like you said, Law, maybe we shouldn't even be endorsing a particular candidate, because if I were to play devil's advocate, would I still feel the same way, or did I still feel the same way back in 2012 had, you know, the union's endorsement backed Barack Obama, or in this election had they backed Joe Biden? Would I feel the same way? Because it's all about, a lot of times it's about self-interest. So maybe we shouldn't even be endorsing a candidate at all, because like you said, it sends the signal that our views align with whoever candidate we endorsing, and everybody may not be endorsing that particular candidate.
Correct. No, we shouldn't. The Secret Service don't endorse nobody because it doesn't matter to them. Their job is the same regardless of who the president is.
Right.
And that's the same for law enforcement.
Yeah, I've talked to some active law enforcement officers now, and they're like, that's the dilemma because they're being painted with a broad brush because they're the regular citizens, everybody are under the impression that because they're law enforcement, they go along with whatever, the FOP's saying, okay, we're supporting Trump. They believe that everybody in law enforcement supports him, which is not true. And like you said before, Sam, I never was a proponent of political endorsements from the police association or anybody that's in law enforcement, because it sends that mixed message. It's like, you condoning whatever they're doing, whether it was Clinton, Bush, Obama, it don't matter, or whoever's going to be the next in 2024. It doesn't matter. They need to stop making those endorsements.
And certainly when you're talking about you're taking an entire profession and you're hitching that profession's wagon to whatever candidate, that's too big of a haul for when you don't get the input from everybody. Like everybody not on board with that. So if I go out with my uniform on and I'm doing this work and I'm getting tagged as a Trump supporter just because I work for an entity that endorsed him, but y'all didn't, nobody checked with me, because although we all represent the same thing, we don't all represent the same thing because we don't all have those same views and political leanings. Now, I still got to go out and do my job. I don't care, who's in charge of whatever they're in charge of. I still got to go out and do my job. But now you just made it more difficult because now whenever I show up, not only do they see my badge, now they see me as a Trump supporter. And that might be the farthest thing from the truth. In this case, it absolutely is. But you know what I mean?
I think back in the 90s, I was independent. I mean, I've been that way for the longest, and I've never belonged to a political party. And that's, I remember when Clinton was running for president, Bush and Obama, I was asked questions of, who am I supporting? Which way do I go? When I'm at work, I'm not gonna give my political views. I mean, that's just how I roll. That was my profession. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be. That's like, you telling somebody what's your favorite sexual position. That's your business. That's personal. So that's how I looked at it, and that's how it should be.
Man.
Hey, I give it.
I'm still caught up in that analogy. I can't get past it.
We can't disagree with it.
Oh boy.
It was effective.
All right, Smoke, we're gonna give you that one. But that's the frustrating part for me is if I was still out there, I would be pissed about that because you spoke for me and that's not how I feel. That's not how I roll. And in fact, like you said, my political beliefs and my political leanings are irrelevant to the job I do. So as a law enforcement community, it should not matter who the president is, what they're doing. That, like, the endorsement of that shouldn't matter, because unless that person is perfect in all their ways and that don't exist on earth, you're now accepting everything that comes along with that person onto the law enforcement community. And that hinders going out and doing the job.
But if that candidate, has expressed that he will do things that will benefit your agency or law enforcement as a whole, then we coming back to self-interest and say, hey, we need to support this guy, because now it comes down to I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So it's kind of like they know that the law enforcement voice and influence carry a lot of weight. And then law enforcement also know that if I can get you to start enacting laws and supporting whatever our agenda is, because you know the FOP is again a big political lobbyist, and they're working on law enforcement behalf or agencies behalf. And so I get that. So it's kind of like we need the union representatives, and they need the politicians, and the politicians need us. So it's this big old political game that law enforcement has now been taken and made political. And you and I, as street, line officers, say, "Hey, I just want to go out here and protect and serve," and they are making it political. And that's the dirty. I ain't gonna say dirty. That's the ugly part of it. When you get into that level of activism or trying to make a change or trying to improve, you need that political clout.
Yeah, but the angle to go with that is given the scenario you presented with, candidate whoever saying we're gonna do X, Y, and Z for law enforcement. That's cool. So law enforcement officers as individuals can jump on board with that, but to take let's just say you're taking an entire profession and hitching your wagon with this person when you have not surveyed everybody that does that job. So even though the majority may, go along with that, I'm being attached to it, even though I don't agree with it. And I don't get the chance to say I'm not with that.
Well, you got a chance to say when they came by and asked for us to vote on which candidate we want to endorse. And if the numbers come up short on who you particularly like, it doesn't mean that you didn't have a voice. It just means that your support wasn't big enough, or your vote wasn't big enough to make the difference. And that's the same way with any election. The majority of votes, they get to decide.
It's a little bit different because I am as a police officer, I'm being attached to a person because the people in my profession said this was who we rolling with, not because it was a good idea for me per se. It was a good idea for them.
And that's the majority.
You also had a peer pressure, especially in law enforcement. You got the peer pressure that added to that, to go along and get along, to, clicked up. I want to be one of the guys. I want to be, I got to be with them, whatever. They're going to, and usually a lot of those votes were like raise your hand or the ayes and nays. It's like people, it's not a secret ballot type of thing.
Well, I can recall a while ago that at an FOP meeting, we would get the sheet of paper with all the candidates on it, and then everybody would vote. When all that's done, the FOP would produce, a list of, this is who we're supporting. And, it may be people on there that I'm down with, it might be people on there I ain't down with, but that should not be, this is just my opinion, that should not be, that's like the American Dental Association or Doctors Association saying we supporting this person. Like, do they speak for all doctors? That's not. I don't think that's the way that should go. If y'all want to support them, go ahead. But don't tie me into that.
Well, the thing that concerns me is the outlayers and the ramifications of law enforcement giving their nod to a certain presidential candidate who hasn't been aggressively speaking out against violence from his constituents. And it kind of gives a nod and a wink to the groups that, like the Oath Keepers and the Patriot groups, that said they're going to be at the polls with armed weapons. You know what I mean? That's kind of like back in the 60s, that fear and intimidation thing at the polls. That is, it's the same equivalency to me. I mean, you got some people, they're not going to be, they don't want to be in that type of, they don't want that pressure, they don't want that problem. So that's going to deter them from going to the polls. It's like, well, I'm not going to go because something might pop off.
Well,
and it's
I
like,
wanted
okay.
I wanted all the smoke. When I went on the 13th, I wanted all the smoke. Please bring it. And I was prepared.
I was looking.
Unfortunately, nobody showed up.
But the thing is, but like I said, these guys that are planning the Oath Keepers, they made it they're not trying to hold it out or anything. They're making it vocal that they're going to be there with their rifles, with their weapons, and they're supposed to keep the peace just in case law enforcement don't do their job. Then they're going to step in. And it's kind of like it's like nobody. I haven't heard anybody from law enforcement speak out and say, "Hey, that's not going to happen." On a national level, they hadn't come out and said that. If they have, it's maybe been a little blurb or maybe a 10-second spot, somewhere I never seen. But that needs to be broadcast as much as the endorsement for President Trump. Law enforcement needs, the FOP, national president, need to speak up and say, "Hey, we're not going to have any these problems at the polls." The people have, you got some states, I think it's maybe about 5 states where it's legal to have firearms at the polls. The majority of the states don't have that. I believe there are 5 states that it is legal to have weapons at the polling places.
Well, when you get to the point to where you got these groups that are saying the things that they're saying and actually doing the things they're doing, and law enforcement isn't saying anything about it, it's because law enforcement is in many ways, or law enforcement people are in many ways involved in some of these groups. So that's why. And keep that in mind when some of these things are happening in the street, traffic stops, terrorist stops, or whatever. When you're dealing with the public, they've been dealt with in a certain way. And I said this a long time ago when we first started doing some of this stuff. That cannot be overlooked, that you're dealing with potential Klan members or Proud Boy members or whatever, that you're actually dealing with them. They just happen to be wearing a uniform. And the FBI report on that backs that up.
Well, I think that you had, what was it? I can't remember what state it was in. They just recently, I think yesterday or last week, they had a recruit that was actually he was part of QAnon and had part of he was a white supremacist, and they ended up firing him. It's like, well, how did he go through the background check without you guys knowing that? You know what I mean? They went back and they saw this stuff. It's like when they put the application in, you sign a waiver that they have access to your social media. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to pick that stuff up. But they didn't hire this guy, and he's going through the training and everything. And now, oh yeah, we discovered that he's a member, so now we're going to fire him. Now he's going to take what the little training he did obtain during that time frame, and he's going to go back to his people with it.
Like they were doing when we talked about last week, preparing to kidnap a doggone governor.
Yeah. And that expanded to not only Michigan, but they were going to do the governor of Virginia and Wisconsin also.
Mm-hmm. Sam, you was deep into something. What you got going on?
I was just looking at some of the comments. One person said that they agree with you, Law, that the FOP represents law enforcement officers and their job is to serve the public. They should not be involved in political issues as an organization. It sends a biased message to the citizen. Reggie Bones said, leave it to Smokey. So, but yes, getting a lot of good comments on this thread.
Keep reading them. I can't see them.
Bobby Drummond says, or should I say reiterated, that law enforcement, and especially the leadership, ain't nothing but a big game. And, you know, he was around them on an administrative level.
He would know.
He would know. It ain't nothing but a big game. Sharon Corley says that the FOP's or the union's endorsement of Trump is nothing more than a clapback at the Black Lives Matter movement. And that is true. They won't admit that there's systemic racism, and they're taking it personal that we as a culture wants change, and they're taking it personal as this is a direct attack upon them versus them coming out saying that there is a problem within law enforcement and we don't condone that type of behavior and we want to weed out those individual officers. Rather than taking that stance, they are pouting, feeling like, you know, it's a personal attack upon them, so they won't actively seek change.
Here's what's funny about that, because the change that is being sought is simply to adhere to the document that you say you love so much. That's the only change that's really being sought. Treat everybody like that piece of paperwork say.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, we good. But right now you don't. And that's the thing I don't get is, why are you angry because we're trying to hold you accountable to the document that you're in love with so much?
Right. Yeah.
Well, because
you wrote it.
But when that document was put together, we weren't supposed to be included in it.
Oh well, we are now. You should have left us home. If you'd have left us home, you wouldn't have to worry about this. So, oh well.
So that loophole is open, and it's kind of difficult for them to find a way to close it. So there's other means that they try to find. But like I say all the time, knowledge is power, and you got to read. And like you say all the time, if you read that Constitution, you read those amendments, that's your weapons right there. You know, it's like I'm not asking for I don't want, you know, more than what I deserve. I want equal. I want just as much as you got. I don't want an extra helping. I just want the same amount. You get two spoons.
Follow that document, and we won't have no problem.
Yeah.
Speaking of documents and that problem, I guess Sam, you want to roll into the Platinum Plan and the Biden Plan and the Q Plan.
Yeah. Ice Cube has brought a little bit of controversy to his effort to make a change, a social change on a national level as it pertains to Black America. So he got together with some people who are experts in this particular area, and he used them as advisors, and they all got together in a think tank, and they came up with these proposals, or not even proposals. I would probably classify them more as demands or rights, and drew it up as the contract with Black America. And a lot of it is what we as Black America has been asking for decades. So this is pretty much a reiteration of that. And it's a very concise. I mean, I did not read it all word for word. I kind of skimmed through it, but it's lengthy. It's pretty detailed. It's concise. I mean, it's strong. It's a lot of what we asking for, the moons and the stars. So they're asking for everything, but it's really a laid out plan. So Ice Cube positioned it. Well, one is the controversy is he has kind of built a relationship with Trump as if Trump is going to make this happen. And because he building this relationship with Donald Trump, it appears like he has snubbed Joe Biden or those who support Joe Biden. We kind of feel snubbed. And Ice Cube position is, well, he's the only one that would listen. And he has promised, like Trump always does, that he will make an effort to implement some of these demands or proposals. So I think that Ice Cube was duped. You know, he was hoodwinked by Trump, but I applaud his effort. You know, his heart is in the right place. I just think that he was taken advantage of because, you know, this ain't like battling members of NWA. You know, he on a whole nother level when you get to that level of politics and you trying to do battle with them, because like Bobby Drummond keeps saying, this is a game and they've been at it for a long time. So I think Ice Cube was pretty much out of his league, but I do applaud his effort.
I don't applaud his effort, and here's why. Presidents do not write laws. Presidents do not make laws. So if you want to see things in this contract, first of all, before I get into that, let me back up. This is an example of what we were talking about with the FOP. How are you going to draw up a contract for Black America when you don't even know Black America? You know who you know. So you can't draw up a contract for what I want. You don't know me like that. But that's a side issue. Legislators are the people to talk to bring about things that you want done. Now, once you get that going, then you go talk to presidents to make sure that they put their signature on the legislation that they get, or if they got to lean on people to get votes and that kind of thing. But I would be curious to know how many legislators he took his plan to and say, hey, I need you to push this. Because I think I sent y'all the link. According to his discussion with Roland Martin, a lot of the things that he wanted in his contract with Black America have already been passed by the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. So did you have a conversation with them? Because that work is been done. Now, are you meeting with the Trump folks to say, hey, can you tell the Senate to pass the bill that the House passed so we can get this stuff going, and can you sign? Now, if they having that conversation, I'm cool, rock on, because Martin Luther King met with presidents too. But that wasn't the presentation that I understood that was taking place. You're trying to get your contract with Black America co-signed by somebody that has nothing to do with making laws, writing laws, or anything.
True, but the president does have influence, and again, he does not make laws, but he can influence some of the members of Congress, you know. So he has influence, and so again, to get his endorsement, it does carry some weight. So I understand that. So like you said, Ice Cube lacked a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas in the way that he presented it. But I think his heart and his desire was in the right place. And so again, I do applaud what he wants to try to achieve. I do think that his lack of knowledge and understanding of how the process takes place, I think that hurt him. And then I think that he didn't understand that when you get into this arena and you start aligning yourself with certain people, people going to have an opinion, and their opinion is going to have an impact on him, the way they perceive him, on his career as a celebrity. There's going to be some repercussions if it's taken the wrong way. And a lot of people don't agree with it because it doesn't seem like he took the time to seek our input, because like you say, we are Black America, regardless of how he personally feels. He doesn't seem like he took the time to align himself with who the majority of Black America is supporting as president to get them to endorse this. It just seemed like it was I don't know when it all started, but it seemed like it either was a rush process or that there was a lack of knowledge in how this process goes.
I did some research, of course, and watched a couple of the interviews Ice Cube, because I like to hear straight from the horse's mouth, straight from the source. A couple of interviews that Ice Cube did, not only with Chris Cuomo, Roland Martin. He was on with a couple other people on social media. Also went back and researched his plan. Ice Cube said what kind of pushed him to put this plan together, the contract together, was the George Floyd incident, in which that ignited a lot of people's emotion and their logic at that time. He actually put his plan out. He got with his think tank, and he put his plan out on July the 1st of this year. After he put his plan out, he contacted both the Biden administration and the Trump administration. They say, hey, this is what our contract with Black America, and like you said, I don't know who all he got together with to come up with this contract, but this is what he presented to both campaigns. He said, hey, this is the contract with Black America. I want you guys to talk with me about it if you have some time. The Biden people reached out to him, and they had a Zoom meeting in which they listened to his proposal. Matter of fact, I posted it on both my personal page and the Retired Voices page, Ice Cube's proposal, which is 22 pages. And the Biden administration said, okay, cool, it sounds good. We got 85% of that stuff already in our position. They said, so what we're going to do is after.
Biden Lift Every Voice plan?
Yeah, it's economic proposal.
That's what it's called. Lift Every Voice. That's what it's called.
And then he said, so after the election, we're going to get with you, and we're going to have you have a seat at the table, and we're going to put some of these things together, help you help us. So then Ice Cube said, cool. So then the Trump administration, they reached out to him. They said, hey, we have a platinum plan. We're interested in you getting with us to improve our plan. So none of the people who tweeted about this stuff actually met with Ice Cube or talked with him. Katrina Pearson, I believe, and like you said before, I don't think he was ready to play the game of politics. Because it's 3 weeks before the election. Katrina Pearson is Trump's, I guess, his Black advisor. So she tweeted out that, hey, Ice Cube was working with us to put a proposal together for a platinum plan. That is not what happened. Ice Cube met on Zoom with one of their people, one of their low-level people, and he brought his plan together, and they took some of Ice Cube's things and they kind of molded it together into what they already had. So, like I said, Ice Cube said that neither plan, he said both plans are lacking. Both plans are not, what they want. A lot of the verbiage is what he kind of brought up, because it says people, persons of color, minorities. His contract is specifically for Black Americans, African descendants of slaves, or American descendants of slaves, and not being lumped together and put on the bottom of the totem pole. So that's where that went. And like you said before, the Black Caucus already had a lot of those things, and they already had presented it to Congress. They passed it in the House and they presented it to the Senate, and it's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. They never did anything with it. They're still, I guess, gathering dust. So what I did was I printed out the Biden page. It's his proposal for the African community, and they're not too long. Both of them like 2 pages. So first thing, the Biden-Harris proposals for the African American community. First thing is policy in Black businesses and entrepreneur support. They say they believe they have to improve access to capital for the Black entrepreneurs and business owners. To accomplish this, they're going to start by leveraging $150 billion in new capital opportunities. 30 billion is going to be in government funding and 120 billion from private sector, including spurring the 50 billion in lending and capital venture, making new markets for tax credit permanent, expanding the role of community development and financial institutions, encouraging more lenders to provide loans to Black and brown businesses, going to commit to equalizing federal procurement by expanding contracting opportunities and technical assistance for small disadvantaged businesses, reform opportunity zones to fulfill the promise, incentivizing them to partner with nonprofit and community-oriented organizations. And home ownership, they're going to create a $15,000 down payment tax credit that allows home buyers to access it when they're going to make a purchase on a home instead of waiting to receive assistance when they file taxes the following year. The next thing, they're going to spur the construction of 1.5 million homes in public housing units. Student debt, they're going to forgive undergraduate tuition debt from the public colleges and private HBCUs and MSUs for Americans owning up to $125,000 a year. They're going to invest over $70 billion in HBCUs and MSIs. Healthcare, they're going to protect and build on Obamacare. They're going to give infrastructure jobs, $2 trillion plan to build sustainable infrastructure and clean energy economy, create $5 million in manufacturing jobs in infrastructure, upgrade $4 million in buildings, 100% carbon pollution-free power by 2035, and frontline cities get 40% SAEJ plans. So the Platinum Plan by Trump is not that much different. It's just a lot of the verbiage is different. This is the Platinum Plan. His pillars, President Trump's pillars are the opportunity. They're going to achieve historic employment levels for Black Americans, as well as increasing access to capital for new businesses. Kind of same like Biden. Security by signing into law, celebrated First Step Act, which is the criminal justice reform. Prosperity is going to be the first president to provide long-term funding to historically Black colleges and universities. And fairness, demonstrated through his actions, talking about President Trump's actions, to initiate investment into opportunity zones as well as address health disparities, wage gaps, and necessary education reforms. And his Trump promise to Black America over 4 years, this is very short. It's going to increase access to capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion. And these are the things that he got from, they took some of Ice Cube's ideas and they put this into his, this is what he put into his plan. He took, he said $3 million new jobs for the Black community, creating 500,000 new Black owned businesses, increase access to capital in Black communities by almost almost 500 billion. Safe urban neighborhoods with highest policing standards, commit to working on Second Step Act, access to better education and job training opportunities, give Black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community, bring better and tailored healthcare to address historic disparities, immigration policy that protects American jobs, advance home ownership opportunities, enhance financial literacy in the Black community, onshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for Black-owned businesses. So
Well,
those are the plans.
the one word that kept reoccurring that sticks out to me, which I equate to that sleight of hand, is when they kept saying, we're going to create the opportunities. Okay, that is so vague. That is nothing more than fluff. You know, just because you make the opportunity doesn't mean that I can capitalize off of it. There is no guarantee. It's just like giving an example when we, as with JSO, went through the big minority hiring phase, where they saying, hey, we want to have 50% of our academy classes, 50% of minorities. Okay, on the front end, you bring in 50% on the front end, but then on technicalities, you wash them out in the academy. So you lose 5 right there. Then you get them into the FTO, the field training program, and then you wash out another 5 to 7, right? Then another, 5 to 7 don't make probation, So by the time, and then in the next 5 years, you done fired another 10 for whatever reason. So over a 5 to 10 year period, that 50% that you brought in now only comes down to a 25% retention. So yeah, you created an opportunity on the front end, and but you created this vacuum on the back end to weed them all out. So I would be very skeptical of all those times where they say we're gonna create opportunity. Now all I want is a chance, but make it a viable chance, because again, they know how to create that vacuum on the back end. But that's what I heard when I kept hearing all that.
For me, all of this stuff is really simple because the Congressional Black Caucus had a platform of things that they pushed through that was actually passed by the U.S. House of Representatives that awaits the vote of the U.S. Senate. So for me, it's real simple. You don't need no platinum plan. You don't need a lift every voice plan. You don't need a contract with Black America. Say that what has already been passed in the U.S. House of Representatives, we're going to work to get passed in the Senate, and I will sign it into law if I'm elected president. Let's start there. Because legislation has already been passed by one legislative body. So let's get the other legislative body on board, and then we sign it into law. All this other stuff is like what you said, Sam. It's fluff. It's political mumbo jumbo, and that's not necessary.
Here's some of the things that's on the bill that's sitting on the desk in the Senate right now. Like you said, the Congressional Black Caucus, they already passed. They already had discussions. They had vetted meetings, and they passed it in the House, and it's sitting on the desk in the Senate, waiting to be passed. I mean, that could have been done. These are some of the provisions of the bill that they.
Before you read that, Smoke, I just want to throw out if a president, that's a sitting president with this particular piece of legislation that's already in the House, if you want to get this stuff done, then you just tell the Senate leader, hey man, y'all vote on this up and down. If it passes, I'm signing it. If it don't, then y'all work on it to make it passable. But that's what, if you're a sitting president, that's what you do right now. You don't got to come up with no platinum plan. The plan is already there. It's passed. Get it passed in the Senate and sign off on it.
They passed it in September of this year.
Right. So I mean, that's a bunch of bull, man. It's PR crap to try to get ignorant black men to support him because obviously he feels that black men are as uneducated as the white men that support him.
And if your vote didn't count, then all this wouldn't be necessary.
Correct. I'm
So
sorry, I
these are
cut you off. Go ahead and read.
no, these are some of the things. This is short. These are some of the provisions that's in that bill that's already been passed. Robust funding to combat the COVID-19 pandemic through targeted contract testing, contact tracing, testing, and treatment, along with research and data. Raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. $7.5 billion for investments in transportation infrastructure through the successful Tiger program, which provides grants to local governments to fund highways, bridges, and transit projects. $7.5 billion to help specifically upgrade water infrastructure and ensure clean drinking water for families, which Flint, Michigan still has dirty water. It encourages government contractors on infrastructure projects to actively recruit, hire, and provide on-the-job training to African Americans ages 18 to 39 through existing jobs, apprenticeships, and Earn While You Learn programs. Provides the Minority Business Development Association, the only federal agency dedicated to supporting Black businesses, with statutory authorization. This means more access to capital, contracts, and markets. Expands the grants for HBCUs to help with acquiring the technological resources needed to continue offering competitive academic programs in the STEM field. Establishes baby bonds to give every American child a seed savings account of $1,000 at birth to aid with long-term savings goals. Incentivizes food service providers such as grocers, retailers, and nonprofits to help eradicate food deserts, which disproportionately affects and impacts communities of color. And the Jobs and Justice Act of 2020 reflects solution-oriented policies to enhance the livelihood of Black people in America. As the conscience of Congress, the Jobs and Justice Act of 2020 reflects solution-oriented policies to enhance the livelihood of Black American people. The CBC will continue to fight for legislative policies in our community. Now, these are lawmakers that have written, they know the law, they know the verbiage that goes into the law. They voted and passed it. So like you said, all he had to do, it's on the desk. I'm sure there's Republicans that know about it. There's Democrats that know about it in the Senate. All they had to do was say, hey, Mr. President, put your money where your mouth is. Check this out. What you think?
That to me, that's the bottom line. If you do that, you don't need no platinum plan. You don't need no Lift Every Voice plan. You don't need no Contract Black America plan. Vote on the darn law, the bill that's sitting in the Senate right now, and sign it into law as a president. If anything that you're saying about your plans are an inch of truth in it, then work with the stuff that's already been passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, if you want to add more stuff to it, add more stuff to it. But start there.
Well, one of the things that I noticed was the, it stuck out, especially with us talking about, being retired voices of reason with law enforcement, is him saying about the fair policing in African American community, about anti-racism training for law enforcement. The president said, no, that's not going to happen. He said it's not going to happen because that's racist. So you can't say one thing and then do something else. And I always watch what somebody do instead of what they say.
Man, he trying to win an election, and so he'll do and say whatever he feel would tickle the ear of whatever audience he in front of it at the time. And all politicians do it.
Reputable.
That's all that is. Because there is legislation that has passed one chamber of legislators in United States Congress. Take that legislation, pass it in the Senate, and then sign it into law. If you serious about anything you saying with your plan. If not, shut up, because I don't want to hear it.
But we're down to 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today is going to be election eve. So the pressure's on. And I would thoroughly encourage, and matter of fact, I'm past the encouragement stage, demand anything that you read on social media, research it. Anything you hear, research it. Don't take a clickbait and take that as the gospel truth because that's what the headline said or something that they wrote in there. They're going to slant. Both left and right, they're going to have a slant. So you can't build a house on a slant. It has to be straight up and down. Your posts have to be straight up and down. So what you want to do, you want to build your information on something that's straight up and down. They got most people, they're going to do interviews. Listen to what they're saying on their interview, not on a social media interview because they have been taking videos and they've been changing them. So that's it. I mean, if the election wasn't important, they wouldn't need all this trickery.
Facts. Come on with it, Sam.
I'm sorry. I'm having a instant message debate with someone that we all know very well, and I'll only use his initials of TC, so you know how this is going.
I already. Hey, tell him. Come on.
It's on my page. Tell them, come on, Craig.
No, we're discussing a conspiracy theory that he's trying to convince me that is real, and all I'm asking for is a reputable news site or reporting agency, and he keeps sending me his sources, and you know who his sources are. So
Fox News.
Dan Bandingo and some off the wall. So, but I don't know how I got caught up in it, but I'm caught up in it.
Well, I mean, I'd like to address it. Just like I said, I like the research stuff I've seen, and I'm sure you guys saw it about Hunter Biden's laptop supposedly dropped off at this shop. From what I understand, Hunter Biden lived in California at the time. So this laptop got dropped off, I believe, in Jersey or New York, to this guy that does fixes laptops for $85. I mean, who does that? Anyway, it's supposed to brought in 3 laptops that was supposed to be soaked water soaked. Hey, can you fix this? The person never came back to get the computers. The guy downloads the information on the computers, looks at it and say, hey, I see Hunter Biden's emails. I see some photographs, and I see some porn. I think I need to call the FBI. So he calls the FBI, tells them what he got. They say, okay, we're going to come pick up the computers. He downloads the stuff on a hard drive. Now, he's already contacted the FBI. He downloads the stuff on another hard drive, and then he contacts Rudy Giuliani's attorney and say, hey, guess what I got? So then he gives the computers to the FBI. They look through it. In the meantime, he slides the hard drive to Giuliani, who sits on it. Now, this happened in December 2019. Giuliani's supposed to have this since December 2019. In the meantime, since December, he's been to Ukraine trying to find his dirt on Biden, which he had all this. If he had, he had it on this hard drive. I thought, since it came out 2 weeks ago. So all of a sudden, the Washington Post gets this story, and they kind of didn't want to put it out because they couldn't, like you said, they couldn't verify with any sources. So that's why Twitter and Facebook kind of flagged it and took it down. But on the surface, it's too many holes in it. To me, it's too many questions. It's like, why wouldn't somebody drop off a computer with this type of stuff on it and not go back and get it? You know what I mean? And if you got that kind of money, he's supposed to have millions of dollars that he's supposed to got paid. You think he knows somebody in the tech world who can do that stuff for him for a solid. You know what I mean?
What happened to the actual laptop after he downloaded on to his own personal jump drive?
He
What
gave
did
it
he
to
do
the
with it?
he downloaded it before the FBI came to retrieve him. So he
So
have a
the-
copy of the hard drive. The
So
FBI
he
has
said,
it.
so the FBI got the laptop with all this illegal information on it?
Mhm.
Okay.
The Trump administration FBI,
Okay.
Justice, and they hadn't charged anybody, hadn't found anything that they had it since since December of last year.
Oh.
So that's why you haven't had any verifiable sources with that information on it.
All the sources are verifiable for people that want to believe it. So if you want to believe that that's true, you can find a million different people that agree with you and go, "Hey, yeah, it's true."
Yeah.
The voting bloc in this country, things bad happen when the electorate is uninformed or unintelligent, and the person that's the ringleader for all of that stuff, he got a group of people that follow him no matter what he do or say. So he could literally piss on them, tell them it's raining, and they'll believe it. So text your buddy back and tell him, he being peed on. It ain't actually rain.
Mhm.
Now, it's kind of like you brought that up, but I watched some of his people that was going to go to some of his rallies, and they were interviewing him, and they wasn't wearing masks. And I remember there's a couple of people that said that they wasn't wearing masks because the president said it's nothing, it's COVID, it's not a big deal or whatever. And the person asked them, I think it was at least 5 people he asked, if the president told you to wear a mask, would you wear it? And they said, sure.
Here's an interesting argument for the mask folks. So one of the I guess leading taglines for why they support Donald Trump is because he is quote unquote pro-life. So pro-life, they believe in protecting the sanctity of life, allegedly, and that whole thing. But when you tell them or ask them why they won't wear a mask, I have the right to choose if I want to wear a mask or not. So even though a mask could potentially save a life, they don't do everything they can to do that by putting a mask on. On top of the fact that now you want to be able to choose for yourself if you get to wear a mask. I don't get that.
Well, it's the same thing with the seatbelts. Remember before, back in the day, we didn't have to wear seatbelts. But then when they started making mandatory to wear seatbelts because of the studies and the science that shows the seatbelt saves lives, you've had people that's made up excuses. I don't want to wear a seatbelt because it'll wrinkle my clothes, or I won't be able to get out the car if it catch on fire and stuff like that. But it's the law now. I mean, it's common sense. If it's going to help you, wear it.
Well, that group sense ain't all that common. So
another thing with the read through the plan that I thought about was the HBCUs. All his promises to the HBCUs. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I remember the photo op the president took with a bunch of the HBCU presidents and staff members and promised them a bunch of money, which they never got. And they came out. I mean, you saw the headline, you saw the photo op with everybody smiling, cheesing. Hey, he's promised to give this amount of money to the HBCUs. And I think it was about a month or 2 months later, I saw this little interview with a couple of them. And they was like, man, we never did get that money. you know, we got sold out. You know, it was a photo op. We got used. We was bamboozled. We was hoodwinked.
Well, they know he don't make good on his promises.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was their fault. It ain't. I mean, if you don't know by now, you being used and pimped. That's hey, you the stupid one.
So if all else fails, if you can't verify, if you can't find anything, use your common sense. I mean, that's what God gave it to you for.
Yeah.
Did he give it? Did he give it to everybody?
I think some people just don't use it.
Okay. So they got it. They just don't use it.
Yeah, that's their choice.
Are you repping your I voted sticker? Is that what I see?
Yes, sir. You know, we be about that. We be about that life. You know, we've been talking about it ever since we started the program.
Yeah.
Just to show the people we don't just we lead from the front.
Yeah, I think all of us, we've all voted.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
you went earlier this last week.
I voted on October 13th. I was in line at 6:30 a.m. and it took by almost. I got done. It's like 7:45. So.
And I cast mine about 2 weeks ago. And Smoke, you did yours today or just recently. So I want to thank you guys and everybody who has been showing their sticker on social media. I'm personally thanking each and every one of them as they come up on my news feed showing their sticker that they voted because I know I don't have to thank them because it's their civic duty or their right, but I just wanted to acknowledge as many people as I can because this is probably one of the most important elections in my lifetime. That is truly about we're fighting for our democracy versus when Barack Obama was elected. It was a monumental occasion. This is truly about life and death. So this is probably the most important election thus far in my lifetime. So I just want to say again, thanks to everybody who is taking the time to go out there and brave those long lines and the weather and all the tactics of voter suppression. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's keep this thing going.
And when I went to vote today, matter of fact, what I did, it was last week, I went to my polling place. They opened up early voting last Thursday, on the 13th in Texas. I went to my polling place and asked the person, how was the lines? And they said, man, it was out the wall. It was way down the street, whatever, because they only had 3 machines in there. Mm-hmm. So what I did, I took off work today, anticipating having to stand for hours. But when I got there, I was in and out within 10 minutes. They had about 9 more machines in there. So they added more machines. And then while, anticipating that I may have to use the bathroom before I went, I had made sure my phone was charged, everything. So I was ready. And then on my way driving there, I thought about it, probably giving this piece of advice to people who haven't voted yet. In anticipation of longer lines, take somebody with you. Take a buddy with you, a voting buddy. That way, if one of you guys have to go use the bathroom, somebody's holding that spot in line. That way you won't lose your place.
If you got a strap on or depend, strap on or depend, but stay in that line if you have to.
Boy. Stay in line. I think that was one of my taglines when I posted my picture last week. Stay in line, because and it might have been because early voting last week for us it started last Monday on October 12th. So the 12th and 13th, actually all that week, lines was off the chain. Now I think they're dying down a little bit. So, but like we said months ago, vote early and sit back and drink some tea on November 3rd, because you do not want to be in line on November 3rd.
And and also keep the mindset that we are losing. I don't want people to get complacent, just looking at the polls and taking for granted that, you know, Joe Biden got a 9% lead here and a 10% there. You know, we got to stay in the mindset that we losing and we're behind, and that we got to keep on pushing this thing to the bitter end. So all those who say, oh, we got this, my vote won't matter, and they're considering staying home, please don't. You know, you got to, we all got to feel like we losing, you know. And so in order to make this an election that leaves no doubt.
The no motion is in effect. All of us have played sports, and you know, some people have, you know, that you don't want to run the score up too much because you feel sorry for the other team. I don't give a damn. Run the score up.
No mercy. No mercy.
Yeah, this one would be. I mean, it is to me. It is the most important election, at least in my lifetime. It is. That phrase is thrown out there pretty much every election, but for a certain segment of the population, this particular election holds long life impact on everybody involved. For a certain part of the population, don't impact everybody the same, but life as we know it for Black people could be changed drastically if the wrong person is elected president. Well, even your light-skinned friend that don't accept his Blackness that you text.
I believe life will change for everybody. So it's not only for us, it's for our children and our grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, we gonna go to Mars with Elon Musk.
Yeah. So, well, we are at that time where, you know, we gonna have to shut this operation down. I think this was an interesting conversation. You know, appreciate everybody's comments. We'll probably hit a few of you guys back on the back end after we all off air. And you know, with our thoughts or comments or likes, but we appreciate y'all commenting. I think we pretty much covered even the ending on a positive note with our voting, please vote consensus. So unless you have something else you want to say, we can wrap this show up.
Well, consider it wrapped.
See you next week.
Peace.
Peace.